KLTV7 is your election news leader, and a surprise bill and a lack of confidence is now resulting in Smith County changing vendors for their voter registration system. An important decision concerning the system used to handle sensitive voter information that is vital to our elections.
It's really not a chance we can take when it comes to elections.
Smith County Elections Administrator Michelle Lawcon is talking about the risk of staying with their current voter registration system, VOTEC. In March, the California-based company sent a letter asking Texas counties to pay a surprise surcharge in an effort to help the company stay afloat in the midst of financial trouble.
What's odd to me is that if the corporation is having financial difficulties, then every county that uses any of their products should be receiving notice. And they do have counties in other states, but it was just Texas, and it was just those that use this specific type of software.
The VOTEC system used by Smith County has nothing to do with the equipment you see at a polling location. Instead, it's the system that maintains and records all voter data, used when changing someone's address, sending out notices, and even mapping for ballot making.
They were either untruthful with us up front or they're untruthful with us now. It's one of the two.
Today, commissioners had a decision to make. Either stay with the current vendor and take a big risk with the November election, or go with another company.
I mean, I don't like it when I make a deal with somebody and then they basically renege, on that deal and just hold you hostage, and that seems like what they're trying to do here.
It's my opinion we don't need to take any chances. If a company looks like they're having problems, they're probably having problems.
The court ultimately voted to enter into a contract with VR Systems, jump-starting the process of transferring voter registration data from one system to another, which should begin by the end of this week.
One of the reasons I was pushing to do this now was so that we would have all of this summer to transfer over that data from my office to test it, to make sure it's accurate and complete before the November election starts.
And while Smith County Judge Neil Franklin was there for that vote, he had to excuse himself early from today's meeting after saying he was not feeling well. He was later checked out by paramedics, and tonight we're told the judge is doing just fine as the senior member of the Commissioner's Court, Commissioner Terry Phillips, carried out the rest of that meeting.